Welcome back. Today we'll be practicing Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, the famous upward dog. So there's a lots of different aspects to cover with this pose, so I just thought I would do one that we could look at individual actions with the legs, the arms, and various areas. So Lisa's joining me today. She will be in the asana, and we'll be looking at it, kind of picking it apart and going from there. Okay? All right, good. So let's get started. Before we get started, if you enjoy this video and find it helpful, please give it a like. And if you're new to my channel, subscribe and don't forget to click the bell so that you are notified when the new videos are uploaded. Now let's get started. All right, so now Lisa's going to go into Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So she'll just go into it. And she's not going to go into the perfect pose right now. She's going to just show a little bit of what we see in class. So you've got the shoulders lifting up, shoulder blades lifting up, and the chest is not able to go forward with the arms. There's not much length happening here. And you can see her, some of the usual problems that happen. The feet turn out. She's on the outer sides of the feet and the outer knees. Okay? So now she's going to come up. And we'll do a few poses that directly correlate and relate to some of the work that we're doing in Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So stand in Tadasana. You can face this way. All right. So bringing the feet together. Come into Tadasana like you would. Feet together, thighs back, middle buttocks forward. Feel that firmness with the outer thighs. And her arms are down in Tadasana. So when our arms are down in Tadasana, there's not as much length as we can get when the arms are above. So take your arms into Urdhva Hastasana. And so from here, now she can get more length through the side trunk. She can get more extension in the arms. So the outer arms are lifting up, but these inner arms need to connect back here into the shoulders. So from here, I want you to pay attention to the inner, from the inner wrist to the inner arm, dropping that. So create that freedom there in the shoulder, from the outer arms, lengthening up. Okay? So now, she's going to go into Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Take those arms down. And you'll use 2 blocks. Okay? So she'll bring her hands shoulder width apart. And have the hands on the block such that you're not going to slip off the block. So you can have your thumb and your baby finger side of the hand holding onto those blocks. And then she'll come up with her feet on the floor. Okay? So now here, I want you to pay special attention to pressing down into the inner wrist and lifting up through the inner arm. Lifting up. So pressing down, lifting up, lift up through the chest. Press the fingers down, stretch the fingers forward. So getting that action of that inner arm lengthening. So the inner arm gets short and it starts to buckle. We don't keep our arms straight very often. We're always bending our arms. So pressing into that wrist, lift up. So the forearm is turning out, the upper arm is turning out. And with that turning, we want to get some lift through the chest. Okay, so come down. So now, that's where the part of the problem is. We don't get that lift to the chest. So now she's going to have 2 more blocks. All right, so the whole idea about lifting up from the floor, you've got to use your arms to lift up. So from here to here, you've got to get that lift. And part of the real challenge becomes getting the lift through the armpit chest. So now you can practice this way just so you can feel that openness and freedom you get in your arms when you press and lift up. So because you're further away from the floor, using the arms, can you feel a little bit more lift here? Yeah. So here, we want the shoulders to be moving down. So as she presses the wrist and up through the inner arm, up to the armpit area, she can press the hands and start to really lift up into the armpit. Lifting up through the chest. She's descending the back. Back is moving down, but there's a lift through the back. Okay, shoulder blades are moving down. The bones are moving down, but the length is coming and lengthening away from the lower back. Okay, and then go into Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So using the hands on the blocks, you can feel that openness in her arms. Here, the same thing. From the inner wrist, lengthen up to the inner arm. So create that length from the hand, from the wrist, up through the arm, and up into the shoulder. Okay. And then come down. All right, now so you're going to stand up. So what about the legs? What about the hips? What about the tailbone? All right, so we'll first attend to the idea of the pelvis and the legs with Virabhadrasana I. All right, so standing in Tadasana, Lisa's now going to move into Virabhadrasana I with the right leg. Okay, so standing in Tadasana. Take your feet apart. So I'm not having her jump her feet because she might jump into the wall. So taking that heel back, connect that back heel and externally rotate the front leg. So as she does that, she's pinning that heel, she's pinning that foot. So it's in a more of a fixed position, and from there she can turn this hip. She can turn the thigh. And what happens a lot is this knee turns down toward the floor. So this leg, I want you to keep lifting that shin bone up and turning that inner calf, turning the inner calf, turning the leg, but keeping this connection at the wall. So from the calf moving down to the heel is going to help you, because this is a little bit of a back bend. It's not really, but you're bending the legs in such a way that you can get compression in your lower back. So tailbone is moving forward, middle buttocks moving forward, but this back leg is extending back. It's lengthening to draw that pelvis in the more correct position. Okay, so the tailbone is moving down, forward. Now bend the knee. And then come up again. Now she's going to bend from the tailbone, from the pelvis, moving forward to bend the knee. Keeping the chest lifted, pressing the hands down on the hips, lifting up through the side chest. Do that a couple times. Now, she lost it on her leg, so keep that leg lifted, that inner calf lifting up. Outer knee moving down toward the floor. As you move the outer knee down, it's turning toward the floor, but it's not dropping to the floor. The inner knee lifts up. And now, reach up with the arms, Urdhva Hastasana arms. So like we had the hands on the blocks, from the wrist, dropping down, reach up with the arms and create that extension through the whole body. So not only through the side trunk, but through the front body as well. Pin that heel, drop the tailbone down. So connect the leg and the buttocks with that back heel. And then inhale, come up. Good. Turn your feet, walk out, and then you turn to do the other side. So when we practice in the center, we don't have the wall, but we're using the wall so you can feel that connection and keep that connection to access your lower back. So you want to use that access to draw that central part of the pelvis forward. And as you do that, you're lifting up through the pubic bone. So if you're turning this way and the tailbone is lifting, your pubic bone is sinking. So you're moving the tailbone down, and you can see the lift here. So you want to get the lift and the length of the whole body. When you're in Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, the pubic bone is moving toward the floor, but you're using that as a point to then lift up. Okay. So bending, go a couple times, bending the knee, anchoring that back leg, keeping the back leg straight, not dropping it. Lift the inner back calf, lift it up. Lift the inner, descend the outer, rotate the outer knee, and lift the inner knee. So see how that rotation of the outer knee helps to lift the inner knee, lengthen from the calf to the heel, and now stretch your arms up. So you're not moving forward. This foot is a brake. So don't move this foot forward. Inch those toes back. I just saw that you moved your foot forward. Okay. So coming down, once you place the foot, then this outer knee is moving back to this outer hip. So the femur bone is moving into the hip socket. Back heel is pressing and you're turning. And then you're lifting up here. So press the toes down, press the foot down, let the hips sink down, and lift up. Good. Inhale, come up. So using this back leg as an anchor for the whole lower back to extend as you lift the middle back and the upper back. Okay, good job. So now we're going to go back into Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Let's take the blocks again. So just take 2 blocks. All right, so your hands are shoulder width apart. How do you measure that? You bring your hands just to the sides of the trunk, and you want to have width through the collarbone and get that lift of the armpit chest. So the front armpit chest is lifting up through the shoulders and descending down. So keep your knees on the floor right now and come into the upward dog action. Okay. So she's got the knees on the floor, the toes on the floor, pressing the inner wrist, lifting up. And as she lifts up, the shoulder blades move down. And the tailbone is moving, actually the head of the femur bone is moving down toward the floor, tailbone, middle buttocks toward the floor. And then she's lifting from the pubic bone, lifting up. So using the arms strongly to press down while she lifts up. Right? Okay, now, do you need to come down? Okay, so now she's going to go with her legs. So here, instead of just lifting the kneecap off the floor, I want you to tighten the kneecap into the back of the knee socket as you lift it up. So gripping the kneecap, that's it. Gripping the kneecap up to open the back of the knee, extend through the calf. Good. Now in Virabhadrasana I, we were learning to lift the inner leg, roll that inner knee down toward the floor to lift the inner thighs up, but at the same time you've got to extend through the heels, extend from the calves. So you're keeping this action of the leg lifting the inner thigh, rolling down here, and where we bent the knee, pressing down, lifting the chest. Okay, and then come down. Take a few breaths. Maybe go into downward dog first. So activating the legs is important. So you're coming up, extending from the lower back to the upper back, and you've got to have some leverage there. All right, now she's going to go down into that again. Come into Chaturanga. Yeah. Can you then walk your toes forward a little bit? Yeah. So in Chaturanga, she's got to move the tailbone down, but resist the thighs from moving toward the floor. So she's got that same lift of the inner thigh, same descending on the outer knee, and lengthening back through the heels. So the heels are extended. Legs are poker stiff. So the legs are not moving toward the floor. The thighs are lifting, but the femur bone is moving down. Adho Mukha Svanasana. It's okay. Okay, she's going to go into Chaturanga one more time, and then she's going to come up into Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Okay, let's just address one more thing. So here she's in Chaturanga, and now she's going to come up into Urdhva Mukha. So she's coming onto the toes, onto the feet. right? So we want to be on the center of the feet. So the third toe is the brain of the feet. Now she's come onto the front of the feet. Before we were on the toes. Now she's going to slide her toes forward and move her chest forward. Keep the outer ankles in so that she stays on the front of the foot. Press down into that third toe and lengthen the fronts of the legs. Good. And now she's falling forward. You can see what's happening with her chest. She came forward a lot. So come down into downward dog. So when we're practicing one way, we have to give up something on the other end. So we went to her legs, and then she lost it in her chest. So that's just the way it is. This is normal. This is how you have to practice, and this is how you have to learn. So you try one thing, and then see what happens. So when you're doing one thing, one part is undoing. When you're thinking that everything's going to be the same, then you look again and you see, okay, I did this, but this I undid. So this is how it always is. All right, so now coming down into, let's go back to the armpit area. So opening the arm. We had the block so we could lift up a bit higher. So now she's going to stay on her toes, come into plank pose, and from there, you either have to start with your hands back further, more in line with your waist, or you have to walk your feet forward. So now her hands are fixed, so she'll walk her feet forward. She'll keep her legs lengthened. And now she's going to move this part, the dorsal spine, shoulder blades in, lift the chest, and try and get that height that she did when she had the blocks. Okay? So here, the chest is moving beyond the arms, whereas when she started, come back into that original position. When you're practicing, it's easy to be stuck here. Your hands are stuck. Nothing can lift up. Okay, so coming back, walk your feet forward. Tailbone into the body. Front pubic bone lifting, lengthening up. Press from the inner wrist to the inner arms and lift up through the chest. So dorsal moving in, chest lifting. Now coming back to the legs. She's on the toes, but you can see she's on the baby toe side of the foot. So what happens is the knee moves down. The inner leg moves down. So bringing the feet, lengthening. Keep the outer heels moving in. Extend back through the legs. And lift up. Shoulders moving down. Back of the head lifting. So you don't want to just throw your head back. Come back into downward dog. So if you just throw your head back and look up, the only thing you're doing is compressing your cervical spine there. So just observe that you're lengthening. You're using the breath, you're extending, and you're lengthening. So coming forward again, Lisa. Walk your feet forward. Okay, so even though the legs are moving this direction, she's still extending back through the heels. Tailbone is moving toward the floor. Front of the thigh bone is moving toward the floor. She's lifting up with these long muscles on each side of the spine, but she's helping with that hand on the floor, lifting up through the chest. Okay, now come onto the fronts of the feet. Okay, so when she comes onto the fronts of the feet, the tendency is to come out like this. So again, coming back to that Chaturanga, inner leg lifting, inner thigh lifting. Good. And then downward dog. All right, so those are certain points that you can be aware of when you're practicing Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. The lift of the chest, the action through the arms, the scooping action from the back body, moving beyond the arms with the chest, but also the legs, the action that you need to take with the legs to lengthen, but also lift, the legs of Chaturanga, the legs of Virabhadrasana I, that lifting. So all of these things, and then the arms of Urdhva Hastasana. Okay, so all of these things are key. The legs that she was working on were the legs that you would need in Sirsasana also. So go back into it one more time. See if you can bring the feet a little bit closer towards one another. Good. So that action of the thighs lifting from the front of the thigh, outer calves moving in, inner calves lifting up, extending, so that when you're in Sirsasana, when you're in headstand, the feet are coming together. So there's this movement of from the outer side of the leg toward the inner side of the leg. Okay? Lifting the legs, keep this shin bone lifting, and extend through the heel. Okay. Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, downward dog. So she's done several times on the blocks, so now you can take the blocks away and try on the floor. So she's going to lie down on the floor, moving the blocks. Face down, prone position on the mat. And now take your hands back a little bit. So we started here with the hands on the blocks, but can you take your hands back to where there's no rib? So you're more at the fleshy part. If you start there and you have the capability when you come up, you shouldn't have to shift much. But if you do need to shift forward more, you'll press into the third toe, keeping the legs, the outer legs firm. So you can see her tendency is to want to go like this, even when she's bringing the legs together. So there's this firmness on the outer legs. Okay, and now when she goes up, she's going to press down with this is the brain of the pose here, the nail of that toe, pressing that down and lengthening through the legs. Okay, so this is a fixed point for her here as well as her arms. And now coming up, pressing the feet, keep the outer feet together, outer ankles together, lift the inner thighs, lift the inner calves, pressing down, finding that line from the wrist up through the armpit, getting that lift to the chest, collarbones wide, tips of the shoulders moving back. Now, dropping the shoulders, lift the back of the head so you create extension through the neck. Active legs, lift the inner thighs. That's it, lift the outer hips up. With that firmness, we'll go into Sirsasana. Urdhva Mukha Svanasana first. So she's working really hard, which I'm sure you're working really hard as well, but when you come off the blocks, you're going to notice the difference. So transgressing back from one block to then 2 blocks, and then going through those points, and then coming back onto the floor, then you just see how you can bring those memory of what we worked on, the lift that you got in the chest, the activation of the arms, the activation of the legs, and bring that into your Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Okay, so now, because of what you've learned in the legs, if you're practicing Sirsasana, then we'll go into Sirsasana. If you're not practicing Sirsasana, you'll just take your arm positions at the wall and go into Ardha Sirsasana. So coming down, Lisa. So take your hands to the wall, bring your head to the wall, and then just do one leg up at a time. So we'll just show, for those of you not doing Sirsasana, so she's going to take her head to the back of the hand. So she keeps her hands open, palms open, and then bring the head right onto the crown, and then lift up. And then she'll walk in. So these legs are the legs that were in Chaturanga. These are the legs that were in Urdhva Mukha. They're just turned a different direction. So now she's going to lift one leg up while she keeps the other leg down, reaching up, turning the hip like in Urdhva Mukha, and keeping that lift of the inner thigh, outer knee, lifting up, extend. Okay, so you're going to do that alternating legs. For those of you that can go into Sirsasana, you'll then come into Sirsasana at the wall. Okay. For us, sometimes we have difficulties bringing the inner heels together. So there's that same work that we worked on with the outer calves moving in, inner calves lifting, which is moving back here toward the wall, inner knee moving back, inner thigh moving back, and getting that. So you can bring your legs apart first. So you're getting that extension, that turning, like in Virabhadrasana I, like in Chaturanga, lengthening, and then bring the legs together. Just going to step in front of her. So she's a little crooked here, so I'm going to bring her right to the center. Now press up into the heel and press up into the mounds of the toes now. Lift up. So as she presses into the mounds of the toes, then you can see she's starting to activate the legs a little bit more. The feet came apart. So getting that movement from the knee moving forward, the inner knee moving back, lengthening up from the calf, keeping the feet broad and wide. Good. Tailbone moving in and the buttocks moving away, which was same thing happening in Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Okay, now one last point, that inner arm. So we were pressing from the wrist down into the block. Here she's pressing the elbow and she's lifting up through the inner arm. So she still has that connection with the inner arm lifting up, shoulders lifting up. From there, hips lifting up and lifting up through the legs. All right, she's going to come down one leg at a time. And then come into forward Virasana. So all the actions that we're learning in Urdhva Mukha Svanasana and Chaturanga, and some of them from Virabhadrasana I, all help to build up your inversion, your lengthened legs, and I was wondering what that was. I thought that was a bug. So did that help with Sirsasana? The leg actions from, yeah. So translating the work that we did with the legs, translating the work we did with the lift of the chest into Sirsasana. So finding out how these connections come and being able to identify them and practice them. Okay? All right. So lay down, Savasana. So before you go to Savasana, let's just go to Setu Bandha. So take 2 blocks, Setu Bandha. Yeah, you can bring your feet to the wall. So she's going to take the blocks on the higher height. And she'll start by lying on her back, adjusting her pelvis. And after you've done this enough time, you know the distance. So when she brings her feet up, her legs will be bent. Okay, so you don't want to start with straight legs. If you're starting with straight legs, then you're too close to the wall. So she can bring her foot down and now lift the hips up, walk the feet in closer to you. So you can, if you're using the high block, and lift up, bring that block right under the pelvis, right under the tailbone. So the same place that we were moving from Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, moving that part. So then now that's fixed. And then she'll straighten her legs. So she's already adjusted her arms. So she's extending her arms beyond the block, lengthening, getting that broadness to the chest, that Urdhva Mukha Svanasana action that we had with the chest, lifting. Shoulder blades are lifting up. Arms are pressing down. Thighs are descending. So when we're on the floor, the pubic bone is moving toward the floor. The thighs were moving away from the legs were moving away. So here she's pressing down. So she's getting that opening that comes through the front body. The same thing. as if she were in Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. If we had a hole in the floor there, she could bring her head back and it would be more of a Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Okay, now looking at her legs, pressing into the feet, outer ankles towards one another, outer calves towards one another, inner knees rolling down, inner thighs rolling down. Okay? So you've just done Sirsasana. So this is one of the Sarvangasana family of poses, Setu Bandha. So just be there, allow the breath to come, and just take a snapshot of some of the impressions that you have that are similar from Urdhva Mukha Svanasana and now into Setu Bandha. So because you're facing the other direction on the floor, you don't realize what extension is coming through the front body. So from the pubic bone, you're lengthening through the whole abdominal area. So try and soften. Here is where it becomes a little bit hard. So soften here so that this area can release a little bit further. And with that breath, just feel that there's some extension coming there. You've got your stomach and you've got your small and large intestine there. You've got a lot of organs housed in here. Behind you've got your kidneys. So we've activated a lot of areas. She's in now in Jaladhara Bandha. So she's got the thyroid glands and the parathyroid glands. So there's a lot of activation that's happening by different various postures that we take. So even though it looks like nothing's happening, there's quite a bit that's happening below the surface. Okay. All right, bend your knees. And then you can lift up, take the block away. And then she'll come into Savasana by extending the legs out. First, I'm going to have her bring her feet to the wall. We usually don't have the feet at the wall, but here, because we've been connecting with the legs, I just want to have the legs extended. We're going to take the blocks on the tops of her thighs. So the thighs are descending. And she can bring her arms out to the side. So bring your upper arms closer in, but you still want to keep that openness through the armpit area to lift the armpit chest. And then let the arms be, she has hyperextended elbows, so they naturally come out. So keep the arms in a neutral position. If you're always bending your elbows, it makes it hard to do that upward dog, right? Because we're used to bending the elbows all the time. Even sometimes you may find yourself sleeping with bent elbows or bent wrists. We covered that in the carpal tunnel class, but this is something that you want to be aware of. So just placing yourself so that your joints are in a neutral position. You're in Shavasana, so we're just allowing the body to just unfurl, unravel, undo itself. Let the thighs feel that block and thighs descend away from the block, descending down toward the floor. Just be aware of the legs in that position so you can feel that action of the legs. No longer any action, but there's the movement, a direction that the legs are taking, that we were taking in Urdhva Mukha and Chaturanga. So not having any action there, just release the legs and let them be soft, just descend down. Okay. We'll let Lisa stay in Shavasana. I'll let you stay in Shavasana. We'll set the timer for you. So just be there. Stay there and enjoy the benefits of Shavasana. Shavasana teaches us to be still, teaches us to be quiet. Like I asked her to bring that quietness to the abdomen. In every pose that we do, there's something that's doing and something that's not doing. So how do we bring that quietness to the areas that we're not creating any movement in, not giving any direction to? So just learn to Come into Shavasana with a quiet mind, with a beginner's mind, surrendering, letting your inhalation guide you inward, and letting go with your exhalation, releasing anything that you don't need to hold on to. Just allow yourself to get into the flow of the breath, your inhalation and your exhalation. We'll see you in the next class. Namaste. Thank you for joining us. I hope that you've learned something. Lisa was strong and powerful, and she was able to follow those directions. So, the main purpose in doing that is just to break it down a little bit so that you can see where you need to move, what actions you need to take, because that can be quite strong on the lower back. So that work with the legs to lengthen the lower back, extending through the heels, and then at the same time lengthening through the spine, moving the hips forward to get that nice curve and that lift. Of course, the arms had to work there as well, but tremendous action with the legs, tremendous action with the chest lifting to get that freedom. So these points are things that you could work on for a long time, and it will come. So just break it down and practice, okay? If you would like to see some more classes that are addressing some of the same things, not in the same way, but you can look to the other videos. All right? Namaste.